Hello, everyone. Once again, this is Josiah Cannon, and I'm here with Naja Jones Mitchell, and this is the Power to the People podcast, aka P2P. And today I'm with Naja. She and I were both in GSP, the Green Scholars Program, together, and she has done a lot of great work over the years. And right now, she's here to tell us a little bit about her project that she's been working on with the Ben. So I actually, with most of the projects, I kind of have like a little vague background knowledge about what was going on, but I'm kind of going in blind with this one. So would you mind telling us a little bit about your project, Naja?
Yes, so I am currently working with a mutual aid organization that is here where I am in the Inland Empire and LA, and is also starting to work as well in the Bay Area in Oakland. And well, first I'll talk a little bit about what they do and then what I'm doing for them. So what Feed Black Futures does is it basically provides organic food sourced from local farmers, local Black farmers to Black mothers and caregivers and family members who have been impacted by parole or probation or are caring for an incarcerated, the family members of incarcerated folks. Um, and so what I do for them is I work in their outreach department. And so I find ways to reach out to not only those families, but to donors as well. Because like I said, it's a mutual aid organ. So they work off of funding from donors. And then I also work with their social media. And I also do newsletters. And I come to them kind of with ideas for outreach, like I said, in order to kind of grow this larger community that will be able to hopefully help a lot more people in the future.
Wow, that's awesome. Honestly, I think that's really cool that you're really getting in like directly involved with the outlets that kind of help us like grow and like foster more community together and just help us push ourselves back up.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that's fantastic. How did you get started in that? Like, how did you like find out or like did you I don't know. Do you have someone who's involved in it already? Like, how did you get
Yes.
introduced to it?
So the organization is actually pretty new. And they gave a talk, or not they, but the head, her name is Ali Anderson. She gave a talk at a webinar for my school. And this is last year. And I went to it and I learned about Feed Black Futures. But and so I was able to reach out and tell them, like, oh, I'm a Black student at Pomona. I'm really interested in food sovereignty. And kind of beforehand, when I had first started thinking about my project, I was super interested in food justice and food deserts. And so I saw
Mhm.
immediately that this aligned with my views. And so they kind of created the position for me based on kind of what I was coming in with and the skills that I had. And so I didn't actually know like anyone directly in the organization, but I had heard about them before. And so I thought it would be a perfect partner organization.
Yeah, that's awesome, honestly. Um, could you tell us a little bit more about like the ideas of food sovereignty and what that means for all of us?
Yes. So food sovereignty basically relates to the concept of or it's a part of food justice. So a lot of the times when organizations start, they are directly donating or they're giving food to or they're driving food to these different food deserts. But something that relates to food sovereignty and that Feed Black Future does, which is a lot different, is that they actually teach the families who want to go through with this farming program, and they create gardens for them, community gardens, in their own homes or within the communities that they live in, so that they can learn how to cultivate their own healthy food that doesn't cost as much as, going out to driving to organic markets or anything like that. That would be super far away and would be a lot more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And so food sovereignty relates to the idea that at some point, the people themselves are going to be able to create or they're going to be able to, create their own food, and not rely on the organization itself. So something that the founder, Ali, said is that basically their goal is to have their organization cease to exist, because there will be enough resources and enough gardens, and enough stopping of food deserts, so that there will be no need for organizations such as this one. So that's basically what the concept of food sovereignty is.
Thank you for explaining it to us. We appreciate that. Yeah, honestly, I think that the work you're doing is fantastic. Because one thing I know for sure, I was just talking to Allende earlier today, and we were talking a little bit about the prison to pipeline, like preschool to prison pipeline. And like one of the things I mentioned is that like I used to get a lot of attentions, and I remember at the middle school I went to, the junior high I went to in 8th grade, a lot of the things that they made me do these things called paper pickups. So during lunch you spend the entire lunch period picking up trash and stuff like that. And a lot of the things I noticed, and a lot of the things I noticed in high school, when I was doing like work grant service with my high school, is that a lot of people are wasting food. So I don't know. I kind of have a little bit of a connection to like food justice in that sense as well. So I'm really happy that you're doing stuff like this right now. So what does like a typical like day in the life like when you're working on, you said you're the outreach coordinator?
Yes, technically the title is communications intern, but I do a lot of outreach work.
Mm-hmm. So what does that look like? Have you been on site or anything like that? Like how's it been for you so far, the whole experience?
So there isn't necessarily like a site.
Mm-hmm.
There is like farms, of course, that they work with to create the like distribution boxes themselves. But I work a lot online, although I will have the opportunity to go in at a later date and work with them in actually creating the food distribution boxes. But I would say a typical day for me, I do a lot of work with the donors, like I said, so calling and reaching out to them, sending thank you notes to those specific donors. I also do a lot of work on their social media. And so I've created, I don't know if you would call it like, not necessarily like themes, but I've created like a brand sort of for their Instagram that relates to highlighting different Black farmers in the area that potentially will be able to source from and get food from. And then I also highlight a lot of Black artists. And then I highlight, of course, like what Feed Black Futures does itself, and the different foods that are in season is something else that I do. So educating work in the foods that are in season and what these different foods mean, and also food justice OGs, which I put out a post for Wisdom Wednesday, which is what I call it, and kind of relating that wisdom to what we're doing right now, in the hopes that other people, not only donors, but people who want to get involved, volunteers, or even, families themselves who might need the help of FBF can really see what FBF is about and also learn themselves about the different foods that they can create, the different programs and food justice programs that we have that they can come to and join. And so, yeah, I would say a typical day is me doing basically a lot of their social media work, creating these posts, creating these research for the different posts that I put out, and then also communicating with the donors to try and get more recurring donors to come and give money to the organization.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I really appreciate the work that you're doing because I know that like black people in agriculture, like black agriculture and stuff like that is kind of like a scarce site. So I think that it's perfect that you're working and using technology, social media to try and like I don't know, not really bring more awareness, but just highlight the fact that that exists and like I don't know help us learn a little bit more because that's great.
Mhm.
I've heard about pages on stuff like TikTok that have done similar things. So that's awesome. Um, and yeah, so leading into the final question of this interview, the Week of Action's goal is to help dismantle the school to prison pipeline through community action. How can your project relate to this and the theme of community, not cops?
I would say that I do a lot of calls to action from the community itself, the community that's here. I get a lot of engagement from white folks who want to know how they can help within the community. Um, and I think this kind of relates to maybe more the organization than what I do specifically. But we're very focused on the idea of community building in terms of like building those community gardens where people can go and where people can learn how to farm themselves. And so I think we're coming from a very an education standpoint, an education that is led by Black people and is for Black people. And so it's a place to go because like you were saying, like our Black men especially are being given detentions and are being, looked at as if they're already criminals, and to kind of have this space where they can go and learn not only about food injustice, but also about injustice in general. And so I think coming through the organization from an education standpoint, and then me as well working from an education mind frame and trying to demonstrate how these revolutionaries came about, I think that it could really help to kind of take away from this place in schools where people are being treated, like I said, as if they were criminals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, that was a great answer, honestly. And I don't know. There's everything that you've just said so far have just been phenomenal. What you've been doing, like you're this young and you're already getting super involved and in depth with this kind of thing. So it really gives me a lot of hope for future generations and for our generation as well. So yeah, thank you so much, Naja, for coming on, taking the time out of your day
Thank
um,
you.
to yeah be a part of this. And yeah, you mentioned that there's like a social media page. Is there anything you want to plug for the organization that you're a part of, or just for you in general? If anyone has any questions for you and what you're involved in.
Yes, 100%. So the Instagram handle is just Feed Black Futures, all lowercase, all one word. And then in terms of information, I think the tag is info at feedblackfutures.org. And then specifically for my work, I would just say that it's best to DM that Instagram because that's where I am and that's just my domain. And you can stop by and see some of the things that I put out. And maybe if you're in the area, in the Inland Empire area, you can come down and volunteer. And when they move up to the Bay Area as well and do some work that way, you can come and volunteer with the organization.
Definitely. I'll definitely be looking out for when they come up to the Bay as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just went and followed them on Instagram. So yeah, thank you so much, Naja, once again. And that concludes this episode. So